you're back already? Hello. Right, okay, here we go. Nominalization and generalizations and metaphor. When you say people always, or do you know when you, or isn't it strange how everybody, or you know what it's like when it's 9 o'clock at night and you open the fridge and just eat everything inside? No. Realise now that when you or somebody else starts to generalise about the whole of humanity, it's not true. Though if you do say something like that, a sweeping statement or generalisation, and the person that you're with doesn't agree with you, you feel a bit perturbed.
So it's like this kind of interesting thing, and literally people will value something like that has them belong more than their life.
Can you see how quickly we slip into generalizations? And please realise that that's no criticism, because we have to have what's called a generalized reality.
Yeah. The baseline
environment. Yeah. And for us all to kind of, it's a bit again of this, the brain likes what's the same and notices what's different. It's like we want things to be the same between us three even. Anytime human beings get together, can we agree on this foundation? Can we agree that generally women in this situation, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as we go into generalizations, just like an average, it won't apply to a specific. Though we kind of need to have a working operation, a modus operandi of how generally women react in society. Normalizations and generalizations. Whenever somebody wishes to communicate more emphatically, including generating a picture in your mind, this is usually also politicians and journalists. They're very good at this. They're actually very skilled in doing so. They want to emotionally connect with you and give some sort of passion to their message. Then they'll use metaphor, metaphoric language. A certain political party lost an election, and the opposing or winning party might say, oh, they're all there in a corner licking their wounds, what a shame. News used to be quite pure. It was delivered in a very unemotional way, very skilled and plain, unemotional newsreaders. Now it's sprinkled with metaphor, sometimes body language, and facial expression is purposely used in order to create a certain state within you. So, metaphoric language, nominalizations, generalizations, sweeping statements, create a reality or convey a reality to you that may not agree with your own senses. These are phrases, metaphors are phrases of the creative part of the unconscious mind, and communicate emotionally with others, as you are perhaps clinging tooth and nail to values that are essential to you. Particularly when somebody presents you, or you recognise that they're presenting you with a sweeping generalisation of something you don't hold to be true. NLP is brain science rather than traditional therapy. Expect the unusual responses, such as when somebody says, I'm depressed. We might say, I'm impressed. I'm impressed you're depressed. How do you do that? Are you impressed all the time? Are you depressed all the time? Are you impressed that you're depressed? How do you do that? If you really want to shake things up in somebody, then not agreeing with something that they offer, or questioning how they do that thing, can sometimes be very effective in getting them to process what they just said. Sometimes people say something very, very important and surprising. Obviously, I'm talking about a client. If you do these things with loved ones, often they're not very well received. But let's say a client says something very impactful about some terrible atrocity in the past, and I'll notice them do what we call the I-U shift. That's distancing language, and often it comes at a point where it's a very upsetting memory or impactful, but they don't want to recognize the impact of it. And they might say, in a sweeping generalization sort of a way, well, I mentioned it a moment ago, somebody that hasn't eaten all day because they're trying to lose weight, we never say lose, put you in a bad mood. They might say, do you know what it's like when it's 9 o'clock at night and you open the cupboards and eat everything inside? And if I say, no, they go, oh, it's just me then. They might get a bit upset, or they might refer to something from many years ago as, well, that was before my husband died, of course. And when I say to them, could you just say what you just said again, please? I said, oh, I don't know what I just said. Or could you say exactly what you just said again, using the word I instead of you? I know what it's like when it's 9 o'clock at night and I open the cupboards and I eat everything inside. Ooh. Has a very different feel when they use the first person preposition instead of including the rest of the universe. And if somebody says, oh, I'm so worried, and you say, so am I, you're not addressing their worry, you're joining in with your own. And it's interesting to have these little plays on language.